So when he was in Japan, he worked. Uh, I think this is before they went up to Hokkaido. They were working in a port where they a ship in a shipyard where they were building ships, and he's the way he survived was there's a sort of he tells a story where um, they were given jobs of riveting, hammering rivets into the sides of ships, and some of the soldiers wanted to, they wanted to prove that they could do it. They were as good as anybody, and so they were, they worked hard on hammering the rivets, and your granddad thought, if I do this, I'm gonna die. It's gonna kill me. It's too much. So he kept breaking the huge hammers. Every time he hit the rivets, he hit it in a way that would split the wood and make the heads fly off, and he broke 3 or 4 in succession, and he got beaten badly every time, and in the end they just couldn't, you're useless. And then they gave him some huge tongs, and his job became to go around the yard picking up all of the hot spent rivets that hadn't been used, pick them all up and collect them and put them into boxes and stuff like that. And he said, and that way he survived. They did get bashed up and beaten quite a lot for various things, or there was a little they were put into wooden cages and suspended at times, but because I think him and his friends and what have you, and he had a good friend that they were looking out for each other, they managed to just keep going. One day they were forced to dig a large open grave, and they thought, right, this is our grave, we've had it, we're going to be executed or whatever. And the next morning they woke up and the camp had been abandoned. And then they were stuck out in the middle of nowhere for months on end until they were finally sort of recovered. And slowly, it took him almost a year to get back to England via America and Canada and what have you. So I think by this time they were pretty, they weren't out of control, but they were pretty feral, I think, and they had a way of surviving themselves, and they were probably quite, a handful to deal with. And after all they'd gone through, they looking for revenge or whatever. I'm not entirely sure. He's not really spoken about that aspect of things very much, apart from a couple of dark intimations of catching up with people that had tortured them and stuff. But I don't know about that, and I'm sure he couldn't remember now. But your granddad couldn't. He had real problems with authority and pressure and stress, and so his lack of respect for authority, his utter contempt for it, actually saw him. He didn't buy into all the kind of ridiculous ideology of the time and all the stiff upper lip, do as you're told, know your place stuff of Britain in those days, and that's probably what saved his life. So he knew when not to, not to be a mug. So that helped. So it saved his life, but sometimes it worked for him, sometimes it worked against him. He was a bit of a lost soul for a long time.